Welcome to episode 115 of How About the Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt and Andrew, and we've got a lot to talk about today. Huskies avoided quite a scare against DePaul, down as many as 14, came back to win by 11 at the end. We're also going to talk about the Marquette game coming up tomorrow by the time you're listening to this. It's a really jam-packed episode, but I guess we'll just get right into this DePaul recap. I know you guys, both of you, Andrew, you're supposed to, Matt, you hopped on and kind of stayed on. We're on the Locked On live stream after the game with Mark and Dan and all those guys. I think there were 60 of you said at one point, pretty jam packed. So you guys shared your thoughts already. But anything else you guys really want to share? Maybe a recap for those of us who didn't listen to that locked on last night?
Yeah, if you didn't listen, you were missing out. And if you did listen, thank you for joining because it was pretty fun. It made what could have been a god awful night into a pretty fun and entertaining one. Gotta love those haters. But anyway, I mean, there were a couple main points that I made. The one that I really want to kind of start with is the one that I think is most important, and it's the fact that people need to ease up. And this isn't where you think I'm going with this. People need to ease up on these college student, I'll say that again, college student athletes, not pros, college students. And just the mean tweets that I saw, obviously everyone knows about the booing. We'll address that eventually. But the three that are going for the three-peat, Alex Caravan, Samson Johnson, Hassan Diarra. And I made this point last night, so if you were on the show, this is just completely repetitive. But they have never been in the situation that they've been in before right now. Alex Caravan was never the guy on both national championship teams. He always had plenty of successors around him. He was kind of just a catch and shoot guy for a lot of his freshman year. His sophomore year was a little different. Samson Johnson was in the starting lineup for one game in 3 seasons. He exited that game due to injury. And Hassan Diarra never entered the starting lineup until this season. Did he start in that Big East tournament game? Maybe. Yes, he did. So we made one start in the Big East tournament, and that was it. So these guys, they've never been in this situation before. This is brand new to them. They're not Superman, Batman, and Captain America. They're not superheroes. They're people just like us. And I feel like people have got to ease up on these guys.
You definitely have to ease up on them. The trouble is the expectation here. You're coming off back-to-back national championships. It's hard to not have high expectations, especially when you have returning pieces from those teams. But the reality is, like you said, these guys aren't. They were never the guy. I mean, AK last year was awesome. The year before he was awesome, but he wasn't the guy. We had so many, you know, more talented players per se than him, and they're all gone, and he's the only one left, and it is a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And I kind of want to get into a point here. I also mentioned last night, I talked about Liam McNeely, and how his absence has really affected Alex Caravan. The numbers, he's been 10 of 37 from three since he went out, and he is now like he went from 42 to like 27% from behind the line. And last night, what was he, one of eight or something? I can't even remember, one of 14. He does a lot of other things well, but when you're missing a key piece like you are with Liam McNeely, it's really hard to kind of expect this team to play at full capacity. Our record before is much better than it was after the injury. As long as he's back for at least a little bit during the Marquette game, I think we'll be headed in the right direction.
Yeah, January is not complete for the Huskies. January is a very infamous or famous month, depending how you look at it. For UConn last year, we were undefeated in January. Obviously, we only lost 3 games all year, one in December, two in December. I believe that Kansas game stuck into December, and then one in February. Perfect in January. The year before, we all remember the 2023 slide. We went 3-6. This year, we were 5-3. Obviously, the vibes aren't very high right now because the 5-3 pretty much maybe the first DePaul game we handle it. They cut it to come back a little bit, but except we really handled that. The rest of the 4 wins really we had to work hard for, and obviously the 3 losses. It doesn't feel like we're 5-3. It easily feels like we're 3-6 like we were a few years ago. But this team is in a good position still. Obviously, it hurts not having Liam in that game. I don't know when he'll be back. I don't want to lie to you guys. I feel like we would have clarification if he was clearly coming back anytime soon for like this Marquette game. I believe he should be able to. He hasn't been in a boot in now almost 3 weeks. But we'll have an update about that tomorrow. Not us, but there'll be an update you guys will see on social media. But yeah, I feel like not having him in some of these games, I feel like the close games wouldn't be as close, and the losses when they were all by what, 3, 4, 5 points, those all could potentially be wins. It goes to show, like you said, Matt. I remember hearing you say this last night. Liam McNeely's the best player on this team. I feel like most impactful player, I should say, because I feel like we're not playing like we're not down 14 to DePaul if Liam McNeely's out there. We're not barely having to come back against Providence if Liam McNeely's out there. I don't think we drop that Nova game if Liam McNeely's out there. We definitely don't lose to Creighton at home if McNeely's out there. The list goes on and on. Obviously, he could struggle like Caravan's struggling right now. Who knows? So maybe that point's a little redundant. But I feel like Caravan did go 1 for 14, but 1 for 14, it's weird to say. It's almost better than going like 1 for 6, 1 for 7, because he didn't stop shooting when the shots weren't falling. The shots weren't missing by much. He had a couple of tough misses, but he also impacted the game in many other ways. 6 boards, career high 8 assists. He didn't register a block, but he was very impactful inside. Just Caravan's a guy who, if he goes 1 for 14, he's not going to let that mold his game. He played all 40 minutes, and that's another conversation we can have. I know you guys had last night. He played all 40. He's pretty much played every minute possible since McNeely's been out. That's something that probably wouldn't be the case if McNeely was playing. I see people saying he's tired. I don't buy it. I mean, they play twice a week. If he can play 80 minutes in 2 games or close to it, I feel like they practice a lot harder and longer than they play a 40-minute game. So I feel like he's maybe getting a breather during some of these games. But overall, I feel like saying he's tired, I feel like is a bit of an excuse, but everyone has their off days. 1 for 14 is a bit of a stretch, but I mean, I'm sure he'll bounce back.
My problem with it is the repetitiveness of of these off days. This is not the first time this has happened. And I just kind of want to bring up solo ball just as an example. He's playing unprecedented minutes as well. In that OT game against Butler, he had 41 minutes. Against Xavier, he had 39. In DePaul, he had 37. In Creighton, he had 33. This is someone who has been rising to the occasion. Solo ball. Solo ball over the past 2 weeks has been the most important player on the floor for us. We've needed him more than anybody, and he has fully risen to the occasion. Solo ball has kind of taken over this team. Sure, AK is a leader. Hassan Diarra is a leader. Terrence Reed's even been playing well, but solo ball has kind of taken this team and willed them in a way into these wins, especially this one against DePaul. If he doesn't hit those threes, I mean, where are we? He came in super clutch. He had 20 against Xavier. He had 23 against Butler. He had 15 against Creighton. He had 15 against Georgetown. It's a common theme now where he's getting 15 to 20 points a night, and he's the reason we're winning if we even are. We need more out of Alex Caravan consistently because we know it's there. We know that he is a top 15 player in the country at his best. But when you're going through tough stretches like this, you just have to find ways to win. And Solo Ball has been finding a way to win.
He's been our most clutch player. I mentioned this last night as well. He has been our most clutch player. I mean, it doesn't get better than that run he went on with the layup and one, then the chase down block as a 6'3" guard, and then the three for the and one. I mean, it doesn't get more clutch than that. 8 points, nope, good math. 7 points and a block in 3 possessions is just insane. But I actually want to talk about Jalen Stewart and what I had said the episode before about him having 0 points and 12 minutes against Xavier, and he had a huge game against DePaul, played a bunch of minutes. And I also, funny enough, mentioned this last night as well. But this team this year, you can say this about a bunch of people from this game. Terrence Reed, you could also mention, Hassan Diarra, anybody really. This is going to be a hot and cold team. This is going to be who's got it, who doesn't. If you have it, you're going to be in a ton. If you don't, you're not going to be. And it doesn't matter what your name is, what your number is, what you've done for the team in the past. If you have it on that night, you will play. And if you don't, you won't.
Yeah, I'd lose track of who I choose for player of the watch, but you can place a safe bet. I probably chose Jalen Stewart for that exact reason. He's either done nothing or had a big game. This was a big game. Now, spoilers maybe to our players to watch for later. Maybe he'll be mine again. Can he replicate that against Marquette when we need the points more? I mean, obviously, we needed all 15 in an 11-point win against DePaul, but I feel like he gets even 10 against Marquette. That's almost more valuable. And I want to talk about Solo for a second because, I mean, he's been, like you guys said, our most clutch player. He's been one of our warriors. He played the entire second half. He's right up there with Caravan. He's a little behind him, but he still played 37 minutes in this one. He's had games near 40 and 40 plus. I just feel like if we didn't have him and him making the sophomore leap, I don't know where we'd be because Aiden Mahaney's been very good as of late. I'm going to talk about him after, but he's been very good. He had struggled from the field. He still finished in double figures. Hassan Diarra, I mean, we'll talk about him as well later. He didn't have a great scoring night. If we don't have solo ball, I mean, he scored 14 points in the second half. The 4-point play you guys mentioned, the 3-point play to really take the lead for the first time. He was hit that block. He was his fingerprints were all over it. I feel like let's maybe close my point. I'm talking in circles here, but I don't know where this team is without Solo. I mean, he scored 16 points and to really lead us to the win. Those 16 points made his Big East points per game go down. It just shows how good he's been.
I was gonna jump into Mahaney there a little bit because I too have seen his performances improve ever since we kind of took him out of that main ball handler role. He's been getting up more shots, and honestly, I think that's just what he needs. He needs more experience within the Big East and more bucket getting experiences within the Big East because you can see his confidence just start to rise. One thing I noticed last night was they had Mahaney with the ball, and they would get Terrace into some Gortat screens and have him just kind of work his way into the paint and get easy layups, which he's, making now, easy layups. But um, other than that, I mean, he has slowly become into one of the top 3-point shooters on this team. And percentage-wise, he is behind only three guys, Solo Ball, Alex Caravan, and Liam McNeely. And I don't think at the start of the year that we probably would have expected that with his start, but he's working his way up there again and putting up very good, efficient nights. He shot 33% last night from three. He had 14 points against Xavier. And I mean, you just want to see him gain that confidence. I like that Hurley kind of took him off the ball there and is allowing him to kind of play his role because it's definitely working.
And I said Solo's the reason we won this game in the second half. Aiden Mahaney's the reason we're in this game at halftime. And we only had 29 points. We were down by 8. He had 8 himself to lead the team. He played 13 minutes in the first half. Didn't play as much in the second half, but that's kind of like playing his role. We didn't need him to be out there. Diarra was out there during the run. I'll talk about Diarra. I have a question for you guys in a minute here. But closing this point on Mahaney, I think he's officially turned the corner. I know he's another guy who we needed to see consistency out of him. This is back-to-back double figure games. I'd have to check. I don't think he's done that this year yet as a Husky. I mean, we're getting McNeely back. I don't think he'll have as many shot attempts. I think he might be limited to like 4 or 5 a game as opposed to what he take 8 or 9 in this one. He took 9. So I feel like he won't have that many attempts, but I'm surprised at how confident he is driving to the hoop because he's a guy who's had his struggles. I know you mentioned Matt, he's making easy layups. That's a bit of a joke because he was taking and should have made easy layups. They just were rolling off the rim. They weren't even really getting contested. He was just one of the most unluckiest players I've ever seen earlier in non-conference play. He just really has improved and he's gelled into his role a lot better than I feel like a lot of people in this position would, as kind of like the top transfer coming in, starting a point guard to start the year. You struggle a bit and then you're sent to the bench. I feel like that would really hurt a lot of guys' confidences. But Mahaney, he had a bit of a slow start, but I feel like he's easily a guy that should be playing in that 15 to 20 minute per game range, especially if a guy like Hassan Diarra, which I'm going to bring up that question to you guys. Do you guys think Hassan Diarra is playing hurt? Because Hurley said that he was
Yeah.
banged up. Yeah, I'll let you guys elaborate on that. But Hurley said in his last presser before this game that he's playing banged up, just overall soreness, maybe a knee or something. He only took 4 shots in this one, only played 27 minutes, which, I mean, 27 is a lot, but he's got another guy who usually plays close to the entire game. He didn't play much in the first half, didn't drive at all, didn't take any shots inside the arc. I mean, I just feel like maybe he's a little banged up. Maybe they just kind of wanted to give him a night off. What do you guys think?
Yeah, he's hurt. 100%. He was limping last night. I mean, the people that were at the game, we had a couple of people on the show that were at the game, and they said they could tell he was limping. Um, and I feel like that's what more people need to take into account too. Like this team is as shorthanded as it is already. Now with Noel out, McNeely out, and Hassan playing with a limp, and Caravan kind of nursing that ankle injury. Like this team is, it's not like a super team. I don't really know any other way to say it, but at the end of the day, yes, Hassan Diarra is 100% playing hurt.
I also think it doesn't help that he's kind of the general now of this backcourt, not just offensively, but also defensively. He's about 6'3" on a good day, and he is way different from any defenders that we've had in the past at the point guard or shooting guard position. They've all been above 6'5", so he has kind of taken on that responsibility of being that tough guy in the backcourt, and it's hard, especially when you're playing already hurt against a point guard like Connor Enright. Leighton Blocker also had a fantastic game. He had 18 points. He led in every major category. So it comes to a point where it's awesome to have Haas out there and he makes a huge impact, but when is he going to get rest? I just don't know for the rest of the year. We don't have really anyone to come in and kind of take over that position. I think we've kind of started getting Noel in there a little bit, but let's say hypothetically he does go down for an extended period of time. Then what? Then who's taking his spot? I think this is why you need to give guys like Noel these courtesy minutes. Or even, we might talk about him in a little bit, but Isaiah Abraham some courtesy minutes because you might have to make some roster moves, or not roster moves, more like rotational moves that greatly affect the team.
DR only played 10 minutes in the first half, and he wasn't in foul trouble. I had a little suspicion something maybe was up with him, especially when DePaul had the ball with like what they had the last shot, and we had a timeout, and Mahaney stayed in, and DR didn't go, and DR's the defensive guy. Mahaney, no offense, not a defensive guy. So when DR didn't go in there, I was even thinking, would he even play again this game? Because that's the spot you put him in to guard and right, whoever had the ball at the time, maybe it was blocker. But Mahaney picked up 2 fouls during that time instead. But I don't know. I feel like if he's banged up, yeah, obviously you want him to get healthy. I mean, 27 minutes is probably the least, if assuming he's healthy and can play his usual amount. 27 might be the least you see him play the rest of the regular season because we have a very tough stretch, at least coming up. Marquette, St. John's, Creighton. That'll really make or break the year. I mean, we all talk about how we're struggling and we're down. I mean, the team's 7-3 halfway through Big East play. We're on pace to win 14 Big East games. Obviously, last year, what, we win 18 last year, so obviously a little bit of a step down, but you're not going to win 18 every year. That was a once in a, I don't want to say lifetime team, once in a generation team, maybe. But yeah, I feel like Diarra, I mean, he didn't have a great night, but he hit a three on that run. It was a 14-0 run capped off by one of his threes. And I mean, he didn't hurt the team at all when he was out there. I'll kind of close it at that. Obviously, you want to see him produce a little more, especially only 3 assists when he's averaging over 6. But all in all, it didn't hurt the team. Mahaney played well in the first half, and his absence was, like I said, the main reason they were even in the game down 8 at halftime. All right, one last really group we haven't talked about. Then we'll talk about the point that Andrew already mentioned, and then finally moving on to Marquette. The center group, Terrace Reed had his best game probably in at least a month. 16 points, 6 rebounds. He played like once he checked in the second half for Samson. I don't think he checked back out. I think he played the rest of the half all the way through. He was just balling out. He looked like the guy that we saw in non-conference play, the type of guy we saw in that Memphis game, the Xavier game, that was about a month ago now. He looked like the guy that could just catch it, just go up, hit the shot through contact, whatever it is. He struggled with the free throw line. That's okay. He's a big man. We'll give him a pass there. But what do you guys think of Terrace? I feel like he really needed this one.
He looked unstoppable out there. He looked honestly like junior year Adama, where no matter what they do, they're not going to stop him. Obviously, the missed free throws in the first half, all three of them, that kind of sucks. But you can't rag on the guy for that. But he looked just unstoppable. He was stronger than anybody, quicker than anybody. He was just on his game. It was a lot like the Providence game where Samson, like, he played obviously and he played decently well, but this was just a game where we needed Reed, we needed the energy, we needed fast buckets. So that just goes back to my point that the hot and cold thing. Obviously, like next game it might be Samson who gets 32 minutes of run or something like that. So it's going to be a hot and cold type of team, but Terrace brought it very well in this game.
Here's my one little complaint here about Terrace is that I feel like it's fairly obvious who the best big man on this team is. On their best night, on their best game, I think you know who you're picking. And if you're continuing to run hot and cold, I mean, how are you ever going to get Terrace ready for these games that he's not hot in? I mean, we're losing Samson next year. We're bringing in Ryba, who's going to give us some great help in the front court. But I mean, Terrace is a beast. He's one of the best big men. I feel like technique wise and strength wise, like since Sonogo, it's like those two. And then Klingon was just a monster on the glass. They all do different things, but just that physicality. Terrace is, one of a kind. And I feel like if you are going to develop him and have him be someone who you can rely on over the next 2 years, maybe three, you need to put him in these situations where he isn't the best big man on the court. You need him to be able to develop his game because if you can get 14 and 6 out of him every night, you're winning that matchup. Unless you're playing Eric Dixon, But you're winning that matchup with Terrace. And you need to kind of have that confidence in him, and you need to show him that he is your best big man because he is. I love Samson, but I just don't think that skill wise he is as good as Terrace. I think Terrace is much more fundamentally sound. He's much stronger and he's much smarter on the court.
Yeah, and Sampson didn't even really play that bad either. He only took 2 shots and made them both. He was a -6 compared to Terrace's quick math. That's a seven plus 17. So obviously there's a bit of a difference there. But I'm pulling up Terrace's stats right now, and this game is the most he's played in a game that Sampson also played that didn't go to overtime since Baylor. So he's clearly, obviously, been splitting, but Terrace has been playing the lesser half compared to Sampson. He played 11 against Xavier. He's played a 12, a 14, 18. Sampson's been playing more, but clearly Hurley went with the hot hand. And I agree. I feel like you can't always do that. I mean, Terrace, I don't know how sustainable. We talked about Caravan being tired. Terrace played 15 straight minutes to close the game. Obviously, he was able to do it. He's conditioned well. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I feel that's something to really monitor there. But yeah, he just showed flashes in this game. I feel like we haven't seen from him. I mean, you all remember that steal. He had the steal, did like it was a little crossover to the basket for the dunk. That's something that we haven't seen from him yet. Obviously, we know he's a back to the basket type guy, but he's really improved. I feel like finishing at the rack. I mean, there's we've had no numerous occasions where he easily should have had the and one, but didn't have the and one because he just couldn't finish the layup. This time, he had a couple where he did finish it. There's some big moments there, but yeah, I feel like it's really situational who the best big is. I mean, there's gonna be games that I wouldn't shock me if this Marquette game Sampson plays 25 minutes and Terrace plays 15. It's really just matchups at that point. But yeah, I feel like if we didn't have Terrace in that one, he had 12 in the second half, just like Solo. If we don't have both those guys, I don't know where we are. We would definitely be a little more upset talking about potential DePaul loss. But speaking of potential DePaul loss, good way to segue there. It was looking that way in the first half, and boy, did the fans not like it. There was lots of boos. I was at the XL Center. It was probably midway through the first half. Not even when it got to its worst point of 14 and maybe it hit double digits or something like that. There were boos at the XL Center for the back-to-back national champions who were just having a slow 8 to 10 minute start to the game. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Obviously, you guys made your comments on last night's Locked On, but I feel like they got to be echoed here because it's really important.
Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you've obviously seen everything that I've said about this, but I will start off by saying that if you are booing, please never go to a UConn game again, and please do not consider yourself a fan. Please don't celebrate national championships or any wins because you are not a fan. You are a fair weather fan, and those are fake fans. As I said before, these are college athletes, and it's a regular season game, and you're booing them when they weren't even down by 10, 12. Like, I just, I want to do this without yelling and saying a bunch of swears, but at the end of the day, these people are just stupid and they're spoiled. That's what it comes down to. The people saying that I was soft for defending these players. You're the ones that are soft, first of all, because you can't take a slow start and you think that booing is going to help your team win. How do you think that feels for Alex Caravan, who's won 2 national championships as a starter, and he hears boos? I mean, you think the team's trying to lose? You think they're not doing their best? Do you think they took the floor and said, you know what, guys, let's upset our fan base by losing tonight? No. So shut your damn mouths and appreciate greatness while you have it, because this program is great, no matter what any of you people on the internet say, and just grow up. Grow up. If you boo your own team, you're not a real fan. I've had it. I don't really even want to talk about it anymore, but I've had it. It's terrible. If you boo your team, I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, I just it's ridiculous to me to like boo college kids. And that's just my one thing. Like, of course, like they're there to play basketball, but they're there for college. Could you imagine going to a game in front of your own students and fans as a 20 or 19-year-old, and you have to wake up at 8 a.m. and go to your first class of the day after all that BS last night. These guys are not pros. These guys are not professionals. They're not. paid to play basketball. They're paid in ways for their names and their services, but they're not being paid to play basketball. That's not how it works. They I don't even know how to go into it. It's just ridiculous. I understand if you're at an NBA game and it's like the Boston Celtics and they're losing to the Toronto Raptors in like the last game of the year to make the playoffs or something like that. Because these guys are being paid millions and millions of dollars to go out there and perform. These are kids, man. These aren't grown-ups. These aren't adults. These are kids who just left high school, just, trying to maybe go to the NBA to become one of these players. This is the last thing you should be doing. If anything, you should be cheering even louder to get these guys going because you don't like as an older teenager and a younger in your 20s person, you aren't sure how you're going to react to these kinds of things. I mean, that could have blown up in our faces for all we knew, and we could have lost by 20 to DePaul. But thankfully, we had the right guys in order to get this done. But I don't just think you're booing the players here. I think you're booing Danny Hurley as well, and I think Danny definitely has some improvements to make. But I just don't think that this was warranted that early in the game.
And I lied. I said I was done, but I got like two or three more things to say. First of all, if there was no effort there, we like say we just when we went down by the 14 points that we did, and it was just never close after that. Say we lost by 25, and it makes you happier to boo them off the floor, then that's fine. You be an idiot and you do that. But if you were booing 10 minutes into the basketball game, there's no other way of saying it than you're an idiot. You're an idiot. 30 minutes of game time left, and you're booing the guys because they're down not even two TV timeouts into the game. It just makes me think, what the hell is wrong with these people? And it's terrible and it's disheartening to see. And the second thing is, what if there was a recruit at that game, a potential recruit or an already signed recruit? You think they want to hear their own fan base booing the team that they're about to play for? No. I mean, if I was a recruit, I wouldn't really um, that would be a huge red flag on my list if I were thinking about coming to UConn because nobody wants to get booed when they're trying their best, especially as a college player. So I just think I don't want to really even talk about it anymore, like I already said, except I lied. But it's terrible. It was horrible. It happened, and it better not ever happen again.
I have a couple of points too, then we'll finally move on from this subject. Talk about the big Marquette game, but where am I going to start here? It's okay, at least in my mind, to be frustrated. You go to a game, UConn's down by 10 to DePaul. I mean, there's a right way to be frustrated. I don't know what that right way is. I do know there's a wrong way, and it's to boo. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's frustrating. You don't go to a game, Liam McNeely or not. I don't care who's out there. DePaul's what? They beat us once in their history. You don't expect that game to even be close. That game 2 years ago, we started the game 30-2. Obviously, completely different teams on both sides, but I mean, you can't. I feel like booing that early, like you said, Andrew, it's just shocking a little bit to me. I was surprised that I heard it. I mean, based on the play, I wasn't, but based on how the program has been over the past 2, 3 years, I mean, Dan Hurley very easily could be coaching against the Washington Wizards right now for the Los Angeles Lakers, but he decided he wanted to stay in Storrs, Connecticut, as opposed to taking the Los Angeles Lakers job. And what that was 6 months ago, and now we're booing the team because they're struggling against DePaul, only to come back and win by double figures. I mean, and Matt kind of stole my point too about how the team. I mean, you boo a team that's down 10. Why do you think booing is going to make them suddenly start making shots? I mean, they started 0 for maybe 9 from 3 or something like that before one finally fell. I mean, what is if I boo Jalen Stewart's finally going to make a three or Solo Ball's going to connect or Caravan's going to make a shot? That's most likely not going to work. If that's how that works, I guess we have to boo every game. But clearly, that's not a recipe for success. So I don't know. I feel like nothing positive can come out of booing at a game like that. It makes sense if it's like I don't even know when it would make sense. Maybe if it's like 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, and you do that because they're down by 15 or 20 to DePaul. That's a little bit of a different circumstance. Still wrong in my mind, but I feel like we were down 14. This is my final point. We were down 14, ended up winning by 11. That's a 25-point swing. if we were up by 25 early on and choked away 14 points to win by 11, which is pretty much the same thing, I don't think anyone would really even be too upset. They'd be a little angry, a little like, why didn't we kill DePaul like we could have? But they wouldn't be that upset. I mean, that's pretty much the same thing as being down 14 to winning by 11. Obviously, different circumstances, but I like you said, Andrew. I don't like talking about this stuff. It sucks we have to, but it happened, so we have to. But you guys got any last thoughts on this DePaul game? I'm glad you do not. So we will move on to February. This episode's coming out on January 31st, but obviously February is the next game for the Huskies. It doesn't start easy. Going up to Marquette, and I should have their number ready. I do not. I'm talking while I find what they are ranked. I think it's like 9. If it's higher than that, my bad. Marquette is ranked number 9. Number 9 Marquette in Milwaukee. This is going to be a tough test. Will Liam be there? Who knows? You guys will know probably by the time you're listening to this. Well, I guess, as I do always, I'll just open up the floor for some opening thoughts on what will probably be one of, if not the toughest games for the Huskies remaining on the schedule.
Yeah, there's no doubt, obviously, that it's going to be hard. Marquette's the best team in this conference as of right now. But it's not a game that I see us really getting blown out in. Marquette's obviously good, but I think we actually match up pretty well against them with or without Liam. And I might get clowned for saying this because of the past games. But, you look at Marquette, they're not the same team that they've been. They're not the Kolek, Iguodaro, Omax, Prosper team. They're not those teams. I I think Samson Johnson and Terrace Reed are better than Ben Gold. I mean, you can start there. And I think, honestly, that segues perfectly into what I was going to say. I think you got to beat him on the post if you want to win this game. Obviously, you're going to have to deal with Cam Jones. He's going to be hard to deal with. You got to deal with Joplin. And I feel like the way you win this game is to convert your layups and get to the foul line on the post. And, if the big guys, Terrace Reed and Samson Johnson aren't making their free throws, and send Caravan down there, and he will. I think the way to beat this team is to go inside, make them foul because they don't have a ton of big man depth off the bench. If that was the case, then I don't think Ben Gold would be starting. But I just think the way to beat them is to go inside and get to the foul line.
I have a little bit of a different strategy here, mainly focused on just keeping the ball. You cannot afford to turn the ball over to these guys. They have Chase Ross and Stephen Mitchell averaging a combined 4.7 steals a game, just between the two of them. And then Jones and Joplin average another 2.5 a game. You need to protect the ball. You cannot let these guys get out and run. That is how they're going to kill you. You cannot let Cam Jones get out on the run. You cannot let Stevie Mitchell or Chase Ross get out on the run. They're gonna kill you on the run, and you just can't allow that because you don't have the athleticism like you had in years past to get back and get in front of these guys. You have a smaller Sandiar who's probably injured. You're missing Liam McNeely. You have AK who's been in his own head, it seems like. This seems like a Samson game. I know I was just crapping on it, but you need someone out there who's going to protect the rim. Um, this is a game that Donovan Clingan would have had like 5 or 6 blocks in last year. These guys are going to try and kill you off turnovers. You need to protect the ball. You need guys like Hassan Diarra and guys like Solo Ball and In Mahaney to protect the ball. Because if you turn it over, this thing can get ugly pretty fast.
And that's what scares me the most about this game, probably. I was gonna go to that point there. Marquette's they're in the top 5 in steals per game in the country. We are known to have some guys that handle the ball that aren't the greatest at handling the ball. Hassan Diarra is solid, but like you said, is he banged up? What are we gonna see from him? Aiden Mahaney has had his fair share of struggles handling the ball this year, and he hasn't seen a defense as potent as Marquette and like Stevie Mitchell, like you mentioned. He's probably, if there wasn't a Ryan Kalkbrenner in this conference who gets the award on Big East Media Day and keeps it all year, he'd probably be the Defensive Player of the Year in this conference for just the 2.6 steals is one thing, but the way he just locks down the other team's best player is another. We'll talk about that, maybe matchups to watch as well, who he guards. But I feel like, yeah, Chase Ross is really broken out. He's averaging 2 steals a game as well, 11 points. Cam Jones, I don't think any of us mentioned him yet. He's averaging 19, almost 5, and 6.3 rebounds or 6.3 assists per game. I mean, he's in like the top 5 in National Player of the Year considerations. He's right up there for Big East Player of the Year. as well. I mean, he's really broken out with Tyler Kolek off to the NBA. David Joplin, even, he's one of the best three-point shooters in the conference. I mean, he's shooting 30%, but he's had games where he's made seven. He's had games where he's made eight. I mean, the numbers aren't where he wants it to be, but he's easily a guy. We saw like Leighton Blocker at 18. Joplin can go for 20 something in the blink of an eye against us. So I feel like I agree with you, Matt, that the main thing here has to be protecting the ball and kind of holding possessions, like you said, because this is the game we haven't. I don't know if you guys have noticed, we haven't been scoring as much recently. I mean, let me pull up. I'm doing another like as I'm talking. Pull up here our past few games, we scored 72, 72, 80 in overtime, 63, 68, 68. We haven't really been scoring the ball too much. Marquette is a team that runs and guns with those steals. They like to score the ball a lot. If we kind of limit them, I feel like they'll be okay. I mean, I've seen my fair share of Marquette this year. One of the last times I remember watching them, they should have lost to DePaul. DePaul choked the game away in ways you couldn't even imagine in an overtime loss. But they should have lost to DePaul. So this is like, I mean, Marquette's 18-3, but they're not invincible in my mind. This is a game. Will it be hard to win? Yes. Will we win? Probably not. But I feel like even without McNeely, I'm confident in this group because I don't think Marquette's really broken away like you think they may have. I think we could just jump two matchups to watch. This is a big game. We'll do matchups this time. You guys got any matchups you have in mind? If you can even choose who's guarding who, because I really don't know the matchups.
I think Stevie Mitchell is gonna give us the worst game all year. That we've had. I'm hoping it's not how it goes. But if solo ball cannot get going, then we are screwed if we continue to play how we have. We need Alex Caravan to step up. If solo ball can get even 10 points with Stevie Mitchell hounding him all night, just giving him hell, I think we'd be lucky because these guys are no joke out on the perimeter. And with how much solo ball has been kind of bailing us out, honestly, um, it's going to be tough. You need him to take 15 shots just to get them up. I don't think that your typical seven or you're going to hit three of them, to be honest. I think Stevie Mitchell is going to kind of make up for the ways that, we've beaten them in the past few years and we've won the national championships. I think they think it's their time. So I think they're going to come out. We have that target on our back and Stevie Mitchell is going to run riot on us.
This is kind of karma for what I guess we've done to teams in the past with the height of Newton at 6'5", Spencer 6'4", and Castle 6'6". This team does not have that height. But Marquette does. They got two of their three are 6'5", and then 6'3" is the other one. And I feel like that height's going to come into play really rebounding. And I'm not necessarily going to like say a matchup to watch because there's just too many to pick from. You could literally pick the starting five against the starting five. But I'm just going to say these reboundings, and primarily by the guards, has to be better than it's been. Because I feel like I've said this every episode and it hasn't changed. Maybe they just don't want to rebound. Who knows? But I feel like if we're going to win this game, then it's going to have to be pretty much perfect. You can't really have people standing around looking at the ball when you could be rebounding it. Stupid shots are gonna come, but you can't. You got to minimize those. But the main thing is the rebounding, and it's not just the big men; it's the guards. Hassan Diarra, battle for those rebounds. Go up against Cam Jones. Solo, you got the hops for it. Go up against Stevie Mitchell, and if Jalen Stewart starts, go up against oh man, Ross. You gotta get those rebounds. You gotta want to win this one. This isn't one where you just walk into the building and expect to win. You have to really want to win this game.
And I'm also not going to take a direct player matchup to watch. I feel like the benches are really going to tell the story in this one. Marquette doesn't use their bench that often. They don't have anyone on the bench averaging more than 13 and a half minutes per game. They utilize their starting lineup quite often, but I feel like we have to win the bench battle. If we don't win the bench battle, I feel like we're already a little at a disadvantage in the starting lineup. I mean, we're not bad, but Marquette, I feel like just they're very well rounded, 1 through 5. Even if Ben Gold isn't the greatest center in the Big East, they're really well rounded. I feel like guys like Mahaney, we need to see maybe hopefully double figures from him. Terrace, I don't think we'll get 16 again, but again near double figures. I feel like those two have to continue their hot play they had in the last game and even the game before that. They really need to carry that over into this one because I mean I hate to use the term the season starts today or Saturday, but really it's a completely different year. You got 10 games left, and five of them are against Marquette, St. John's, and Creighton, and it's at Creighton to add insult to injury there. But I feel like you need big games from Mahaney, big games from Big Nate, big games from Reed. Even guys like Jaden Ross. I forgot to shout out Jay Ross, but he was plus 12 in that comeback against DePaul. So I don't maybe if it's him making a big three or something, who knows? And if McNeely's back, he'll be on in that unit, probably off the bench. Or if he starts, Jalen Stewart's in that unit. So I feel like our bench is our strength in this one, even if it maybe isn't going to be a strength for us in every single game. So I feel like we really need to utilize that. I mean, if we lose the starting lineup scoring battle by a lot, but our bench makes up for it, this could be a very close and interesting game. And last point here, it's been a bit of a longer episode than I anticipated, but we're doing players to watch for the Huskies. Who you guys got in mind?
Think it's very hard for me at least to choose anyone but Alex Caravan. Not just because I want him to, come out and help us beat Marquette, but just for him personally. I want to see him back at that top level. I mean, there's been a lot of talk here about his one of whatever shooting nights. And I just don't want to see any more of those. I want to see him be that 7 of 10, that 8 of 12, that 9 of 14 kind of shooter that we know he is. And I feel like if he comes back and kind of gives us what we haven't really had for the past few weeks, I feel like we can pull this one out. We need him though to show up, not just for the team, not just for this game. Don't just watch him in this game. Watch him for the rest of the season. Because if he comes out here, has another pretty rough game, I mean, things can start snowballing pretty quick.
I mean, Matt already said it, but I'm going to take Solo. He's the X factor in this game. People have ragged on him for his defense all year. That was a great, obviously the chase down block. He's being more disruptive on defense, and he's been pouring in points. But I mean, Matt said he's got to get going, or we may be screwed. And I think he's absolutely going to be the X factor in this game for a bunch of different reasons. So I'm going to take him. He's had the hot hand recently too, so I'm going to take him.
And I'm gonna go Jalen Stewart, and I'm gonna give my spiel. Then I'm gonna say one last point: just don't score zero if you play, because like I mean, 15. He's struggled in the games after scoring double figures. He had 14 points against Nova, zero versus Georgetown, 14 versus Creighton, four against Butler. He had 10 against Gonzaga, two in the Big East opener against Xavier. I could do this for a few more games. 16 against Maryland Eastern Shore, six versus Baylor, 16 versus Memphis, six versus Colorado. I mean, every time he scores double figures, I feel like he just falls off the next game. And I don't, that's not a recipe for success because say we're in the NCAA tournament, say in the round of 64 against a team that we should beat, he scores 16 points. Okay, good. You have a game 2 days later against a team who's tougher, and he comes up and scores zero. Obviously, that's blowing it out of proportion a bit there, that comparison, but that's kind of the vibes I'm getting. I mean, he scored 0 points against Xavier, and he responds. I'm trying to think of the word. Responds with 15 against DePaul. Just get some consistency. Hurley talks about it. I feel like I should get a tattoo of the word consistency on my body somewhere after the season. But one last quick point. I don't know if you guys caught it, but Stewart got banged up at the end of that game. I don't know. He looked from where I was sitting in the media section near the UConn bench. He was on the end in some clear pain. Hopefully that's not another added injury to what we already have with McNeely out. Noel, who knows when he'll be back because he has an ankle sprain. McNeely has an ankle sprain. We haven't seen McNeely for a month. Who says we'll see Noel again all year? But Stewart, I feel like if he misses any time, I don't know what his injury is. It looked like a core-ish injury, like the middle, like of his body, if that makes sense, like a pelvic area. If he misses any time, I don't know where. We'll search for answers there. That's not anything I really want to think about. But I guess you guys got any last thoughts here before we wrap up? I know we probably should mention the Stewart bang up a little earlier, but I just thought of it when I'm thinking of my player to watch. You got one thing?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a little bit of a longer video here.
That's
So,
right.
does anybody have any word suggestions? Does anybody have anything?
Um,
I'm trying to
First
think.
word that came to mind was boo. But like
Yeah.
I don't want them commenting boo
That's
on our
that's
video.
also what I thought.
But like that's not good.
I'm gonna say cheer. Why don't we go the opposite?
Cheer, that's a good one.
Cheer the guys. Cheer.
Comment cheer if you've listened this far on YouTube. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else, go to the YouTube and comment cheer and say cheer from wherever you're watching or listening from so we know. But yeah, that'll do it here, episode 115. We got 6 days between games. We'll definitely be recapping the Marquette game and previewing St. John's. Maybe we'll do something fun again during that week off. We're trying to no pun intended, lock down something with Locked On. Not saying that's coming next week, but we'll definitely be doing a full episode collab with Mark at some point in the near future. So look out for that. We'll let you guys know beforehand when that's coming out. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning into this longer one. Comment, cheer, and thanks for watching.